Hi, my name's Steve and welcome to the Seaside Allotment channel, and it's time for the monthly tour. In fact, it's a few days late for the monthly tour, but I've been tidying up. The plot was a real old mess. Basically, I've hardly been down the plot since open day, which was nearly a month ago now, and I've just been so busy doing other things, and obviously we've been down for harvesting and occasionally watering and things like that, but very little other work has been needed, partly because it's been raining a lot, and so there's not been very much watering to do other than inside. I'm in the polytunnel at the moment, but yeah, I mean, just basically plot's been ticking over, and obviously when the plot's in that kind of ticking over state, it just degrades gradually. Loads of weeds, plants that really should have been pulled up and replaced didn't get done, so beds just got messy basically. So it's been nice to spend a couple of days down here and get it really nice and tidy. Well, yeah, fairly nice and tidy, I guess. So I'm going to do the tour, and just the summary though, I think, is that everything's going pretty well. We are in a lot better place than we were last year, because last year we had this dodgy batch of compost, and so everything that I sowed in August basically just failed to thrive. And so as I was doing this tour effectively last year, I was saying, well, just nothing's growing. And it was a weird situation, things that, the seedlings would burst through just as normal. And then 3 weeks, say, would go by and just no growth at all for that whole period of time. And that just continued. There was just no growth at all. So even, I was doing the September tour a month later, I could show you a seed tray that basically looked as if it was 1 week old, but it was actually 6 weeks old. And it was a real disaster. It put me back no end, and it was really, quite a challenge. I was kind of scouring garden centres to try and find the odd lettuces and things like that, and it just didn't work out very well. And then the few lettuces that I did manage to get, cutworm got them. So I was just, it was such a terrible time. Well, terrible is relative, but for a gardener, it was a terrible time. So yeah, and what I had to do last year is I had to repot everything. So these little tiny seedlings all had to be repotted, and I didn't have very many seedling trays, so I was potting them into great big pots. It was just ridiculous. And as soon as I repotted them, or actually planted them in the ground, those that were just big enough to do that, they just went away. They grew away fine, just at normal pace. So it was obviously something wrong with that compost. I don't know what was wrong with it. The plants didn't seem deformed or anything. They just didn't grow. It was weird. Never had anything like that. Never had anything since. Hope to never have it again. So yeah, I mean, apart from that, obviously we are a little bit behind on the tomatoes and the peppers and things like that. They've got about 4, 5, well, let's give them 5 weeks now before I have to take them out, because their beds need replanting. And I'm pretty confident that we'll get most of them ripened in that time. So other than that, I'm pretty pleased. Obviously, like everybody, I think, we've had massive problems with everything in the beet family, with either leaf miner, which was kind of at the start of the season, and then in the middle of the season, anything red, so chard, red chards, red beetroots, all of those on all the plots around here have all got fungal spot. The green stuff, so like the green chards and the golden beetroots and things like that, they don't seem to have suffered anywhere near as badly. But that's the thing with gardening, isn't it? That there's always something every year. Last year it was white flying cabbage aphid devastating the brassica crop. It was always something. But the key is to diversify, and my approach, which people are probably tired of me talking about, is to always grow a few varieties of things. So in this case, as I said, the golden beetroot are fine. It's the red beetroots that have suffered. So if you grow a diversity of crops in a diversity of locations, so in our case we're lucky because I do the planning for my daughter's plot, my wife's plot and my plot, so I'm able to sort of make sure that we spread things around. So particularly the staples, the things that we eat pretty much, well, so every week if not every day, beetroot, carrots, brassicas and things like that, they're on all 3 plots, and there's different varieties on those plots, so we get a nice diversity, and it seems to work well. And actually now we're converting the back garden and to some extent the front garden into a kind of edible ornamental kitchen garden as well. So let's get on with the tour. We'll start in the polytunnel, then we'll do my plot, then we'll go over and we'll do Jennie's plot, and then we'll do my wife's Debbie's plot, and yeah, and then, well, that's enough. So I'm in my favourite seat in the polytunnel, and this is what I see. And so we keep the trestle table clear at this time of year because it's pretty windy outside, and we're generally harvesting in the early evening, and all the harvesting gets done and all the preparation gets done on this trestle table, and we need the whole trestle table, and we'll clear that end as well, because that will be full of our sort of Tupperware containers that you can see some there when we do the harvest. And it's really nice to harvest in here, and it's really nice to have that space. And the other reason we're keeping it clear is because we're trying to get everything underneath the trestle table mature, so that we can harvest it all by October, because then everything here will be cleared and all of this will be replaced by a variety of different salad crops. So lettuces, salad rocket, spring onions, carrots, you know, all those sorts of things. And so what we've got here is we've got beetroot along the front, and they're growing pretty well, they're cylindra. And then in the middle we've got peppers, and they're going nicely as well. I'll show you some of these things in a minute a bit closer up. And then we've got carrots on the far side, where they just get enough sun, and those are Autumn King, I think, so those will be picked and packed for store. Most of the carrots we leave in the ground, but obviously we're taking those out because we need the space. And then up in the hanging baskets we've got the cucamelons, so let's just have a quick look. Beetroot are growing okay. I don't know how big they're going to end up by October, it's going to be interesting to see, but pretty pleased with those. Peppers are going quite nicely, we've got quite a nice crop of peppers coming, and they're all starting to ripen now. And yeah, pretty pleased with them. And although they're not all ripened at the same time, that's actually quite nice, because mainly at this time of year we're using the peppers in the passata mixes. So basically, as Debbie picks tomatoes, she also picks peppers, and we've just got just about enough to keep up. So that's that bed. And then on the main bed, we've got tomatoes. We're actually harvesting tomatoes today. Got a decent crop still. And then we've got more peppers at the front. And again, you'll never see many ripe peppers on our plants, as I say, because they're always getting harvested all the time. Yeah, it's all coming along nicely, and I think comparing to last year, I've worked a little bit harder on the light levels in here, and as a result, everything looks like it's ripening well. So I'm pretty confident, really, that the whole crop will get ripened within the next 5 weeks, which is really nice, because last year we had to pick a heck of a lot of green tomatoes and try and ripen them on the windowsill, which was not ideal. I'm very pleased with these, actually. These are the indigo pear drop, and they end up looking like this, and they're really nice. One of the tastiest of the tomato varieties that we're growing. Now unfortunately I've not done a very good job of managing the cucumbers this year. All of them have died off now. Normally what I do is I start another batch in June and then they keep going until October time. But these were where the cucumbers were. Popped a few radish in here, and brought some of my seedling trays from home now because it is getting a bit blustery and cold with heavy rainfall. So yeah, these are all here. All of these pretty much, in fact all of these are destined for the cold frames outside, and I'll show you those in a minute. I did pop a few extra courgettes in, and I've been pretty pleased with those. They're coming on nicely. That's the polytunnel, and I'm really excited actually for the transition. I really don't like things in decline. I'm a bit of a neat freak, and I really like to see things growing strongly and healthily. And obviously at this time of year, all the summer stuff is in decline, so I'm really keen to sort of get it all harvested and get all the new stuff in and see everything growing for winter and spring. It's such an exciting time for me, in part because not as many everybody gardens for summer, but not as many people garden for an abundant winter and early spring and hungry gap. We actually try and make sure that the hungry gap is our most abundant time, and this year we've only just in the middle of August got harvest levels that exceeded the harvest levels we were taking in the hungry gap. So that's kind of just my thing. I think I take it as a challenge. As soon as you say something like the hungry gap, well, to me that's like, yes, I'm going to make that the most abundant time of year. So let's have a look outside. This is what we're eating for cucumbers now. We're on the outside cucumbers. My trusty early runner beans that started life in the polytunnel that we started harvesting in May, they are still growing so strong outside here, but I'm leaving these plants now because I want to save the seeds. Now we've got masses of gherkins. Gherkins are one of the few things we actually grew in containers, and Debbie is so fed up of pickling gherkins, but every time she comes down to the plot there's more to pick. Hardly anything in containers this year to reduce the amount of watering. That's not just to save water, because water's pretty cheap, it's also just to save effort. But we're trying to do our bit in saving water as well, but saving effort is what it's about for me, and meaning that we don't have to visit the plot every day to water. We can leave it 2 or 3 days and it's quite happy. So the oca is grown in containers, and the idea behind that decision is that it lets me just use this little spare storage area productively, but it also means that late in the season, December time, the oca can go into the polytunnel, and that, when it's really cold and the end of the season, that's when most of the tuber formation takes place. So I'm hoping that I can maximise tuber formation from the oca by taking the containers inside, bringing a bit of fleece on them, keeping them going as long as possible. So there's a quick overview. It's very windy today, so I hope the audio is okay. So this is one of my main salad beds, and I just love these 2 lettuces. They just go together so well. This bronze red-leafed lettuce and this beautifully bronze tinged. We grow mostly coloured lettuces. We don't grow many green lettuces, partly because of the slugs. And then of course we've got spring onions, lovely spring onions. We have spring onions pretty much every day of the year, because we eat salads pretty much every day of the year. So I put some of my cold frame tops on because it's just so windy, and it just helps with the newly planted lettuces. It means you don't need to harden them off or anything like that. So those were planted a couple of weeks ago. There's a Grenoble Red, maybe actually only last week, and these are the same batch basically of Grenoble Red, but only planted a couple of days ago. Some lovely red cabbages and some calabrese. I've got lots of successions of things going on. This net will come off soon because obviously they're getting a bit tight in there now, and I've got some good uses for these nets, so I need them as soon as possible. This is a cold frame without a top, and I've just cleared this one. This did have golden beetroot in it, and this is the sort of, if you've watched the history of my videos, you'll know that this bed had a really dodgy golden beetroot in it. I could tell there was something wrong with it as soon as the seedlings emerged. The leaf structure just wasn't correct, and they never thrived, and they were always strange looking. The beetroot themselves were fine, or most of them were fine, but there was definitely something wrong with those seeds, so never buying those again. I'm obviously buying golden beetroot again because I love it, but just not that variety. And then these are my most immature batch of beets. These will be out of this cold frame in October time, and they won't be big enough for storage because you can see they're only diddlers. But they might get pickled or just eaten as baby beets. This is one of my mini hoop tunnels, and it's currently protecting this bed of peppers, and they are giants, huge, and they look fantastic. There's a fantastic crop on here. It's just getting it ripened. I'm really pleased with it. These are the best peppers I've ever grown. I've done quite a lot of work on soil prep over the years, and I think it's really starting to pay off now. We don't do anything clever, just do all the basics, but the basics is what it's all about, really. Feed the soil and all that. And we have got some baby leeks in here, just sort of squeezed in, so they'll be ready for harvest at the same time. And a few spring onions. Everywhere you look, you'll see spring onions. The hoop tunnel closed, and that's how it's staying at the moment because, as I say, it's cold and windy at the moment. I just want to give them as much protection as I can. Chard bed and spring onions, and hopefully you can see what I mean about the fungal spot starting to develop on some of these leaves. These are the red ones. That's probably a better one. They're just not looking great, are they? And I've got another bed of peppers. Beauties again. Quite a few different varieties actually. I've got this gorgeous bed of salad kale. Leaves are getting a bit big now for salads, but we're also harvesting these leaves for smoothie mixes, and they're really great in the smoothie mixes. I think actually we'll just try steaming some as well to see how they do, because I'm really pleased with them. And I've just cleared this bed, and this is ready for spinach in a few days. That's my oldest Carvalho Nero bed. It's actually the variety Black Magic. We sowed that, I think it was about March time. We planted it out rather in March time, and yeah, it's been fabulous. It's ready to be taken out soon. As soon as this bed is needed, that'll have gone. And we just squeezed a few tomato plants in the corners of these cold frames, and I'm pleased I did because we're getting a decent harvest off them. And then in these beds, got chard, bright lights that is, beetroot. We had to take the tops off the beetroot because of that fungal spot, but they're ready anyway now, so they're just holding there. Keeps them nice and fresh, not growing very much more now because they're already big enough. And that was another bed that we cleared. Again, this is the one, so you can see how bad the fungal spot is. Not actually, that's probably not the right name, but that's what I'm calling it. But yeah, these are okay. It's not fantastic. I'm definitely going to have to work on my beetroot for next year. This is my second oldest brassica bed. And this was started undercover, with one of those little hoop tunnels on it. And again, it's done really nicely. I'm actually going to leave this one in now because I don't need this bed, and it's looking pretty healthy. I think it'll get some decent leaves off that all the way through winter. And then I did pop some sprouts in here a few weeks later, and they're looking okay as well. And these are my only red sprouts, the rhubarb sprouts. I think there's about 4 or 5 of those plants in there. So I just planted this bed of field beans, and I just put the field beans on the soil, pushed them in about 1 centimetre, and then mulched over the top with spent mushroom compost. And then there's some spring onions around the periphery on that end. And then this row here has all of my Christmas potatoes. Well, actually all of the ones that I've got on the allotment. I've got plenty at home as well. And you can already see that this bed suffers a lot from debris from that big tree. And that's one of the reasons over winter why it's so useful to have the covers on these beds, because otherwise they just get covered with mouldy leaves, which is not great. And so I'm going to put some of those netted tunnels, got one down there, look, those netted tunnels over here, to keep all those leaves off. Raspberries are still doing okay actually. I'm making an amazing raspberry jam at the moment. Debbie's got a fantastic recipe, so she'll be down here picking these raspberries and I'll be eating them. I have to make sure I eat them fresh on the plot, because Debs is always nabbing them for jams. And then this is my perpetual, ever-bearing, whatever you want to call it, strawberry bed. It's pretty much finished now, to be honest. With a few nice little trees. This is the first year, so I'm actually quite pleased that I've got anything off them. It's quite nice to taste them, you know, because when you buy just from the catalogue, you're never quite sure what things are going to taste like. Asparagus is doing very nicely. I'm quite pleased with that. I've got a few self-seeded plants down there as well, and I've potted up a few in here. So we'll extend the size of this bed. This is my golden purslane bed. I've taken it out now because it's pretty much finished. Well, it's definitely finished because I've taken it out, but it doesn't really like the wet, constant rain and wind, and so it was looking pretty worse for wear. And of course this New Zealand spinach bed is taking over, and so yeah, we keep on harvesting this as fast as we can and sharing a lot with other people, and lots of allotmenteers keep coming in for their supplies as well. So it's going pretty well. New Zealand spinach is just an amazing plant. Some carrots, those are resist a fly, given that they're outside at peak carrot root fly time. And just some spare lettuces that I had, I just popped in here. Pretty pleased with those, they're going alright. In this little netted frame here, I've just put some freckles down there and some Roxy down here. Obviously these won't last through winter, but they should be pretty good in mid to late autumn. And it just means that I can let the ones in the cold frames mature, so that we get a really good strong crop in November and December from those beds. And then in January and February mostly we'll be eating lettuces from the polytunnel. We've got some lovely golden beetroots. These are maturing pretty nicely, so we're going to get a nice crop off these, I think. We need to thin them out a bit though, but anyway, they're doing good. And yeah, another early kale bed. Everything on my plot is really generally early or late, that's my focus. And the other beds, other plots, focus on main crop stuff. Finally on my plot, there's just a few baby kales, which are growing quite nicely. I'm pretty pleased. Hopefully we'll get a decent crop off these come winter. Interplanted with golden beetroot, and maybe down there. I'll have to get closer. I've got some mini Savoys. We've harvested most of them now. All of these will get harvested next week, and then in here, that's where the Romanesco cauliflowers will go, and they're at home at the moment on the patio. And I've got some sprouts at the end. It's a very good job. We've got our dehydrator because we've got a lot of pears. And last year we lost almost all these pears because we were on holiday when they ripened. And the thing is, when they ripen, they just all drop on the floor, and the birds come in and start pecking them, and then, you know, only a few days later really they're rotten. So now we're on Jennie's plot, and we've got some Braben apples here. This is a new tree, it's doing pretty well, and most of these apples on this tree are being dehydrated, and it's pretty good for that. They're a really nice tangy apple, and they dehydrate very nicely. Although we've got a lot of problems on here with, again, this kind of, I don't know what it's called, but it renders the apple pretty much useless, so you can't eat it, you can't dehydrate it, it looks horrible. Got a new plum tree with one plum on it. I'm really looking forward to Victoria plums. And I actually took loads of plum pears off this tree, and there's still a ridiculous number left on it. Too many really. I should have, I feel a bit guilty, but now at this stage I feel even more guilty taking them off. Some more eating apples, and then this is two varieties on one tree. This is Golden Delicious, and again you can see a lot of damage on these. Very few of these are going to end up being of eating quality, and then these are Discoveries, and these are actually pretty good, so we're eating these and dehydrating them because they're not keepers. And then we've got our French beans. Very pleased with the harvest off these. Took them forever to get going. Next year I'm going to grow French beans in the polytunnel as well for an early crop. I've got cauliflowers, cabbages, January Kings, then North Furl, and red cabbages, Rudolph or early purple, I can't remember which, purple sprouting broccoli, claret, purple sprouting broccoli, some sort of kale, can't remember, 1,000 head or something like that, kale. Doesn't look at its best at this time of year, it's really for spring. And most amazing sprouts. They've done really well, and we're eating sprouts now, so we've got a mix of varieties with different timings. And I know some people don't like the sprouts when they blow like this, but I actually prefer them. That's my favourite way of eating sprouts. We've got sprouts all the way down here, and this is worthy of mention. Did a lot of work on the ground prep for this bed, and it's really paid off. Things like this Calabrese, we started harvesting this in May, I think, and we've pretty much been eating side shoots off here. We're just finishing really, so the side shoots are just finishing. So that is amazing. You know, May, June, July, August, like 4 months or 3.5 months of side shoots. Fantastic. And big side shoots as well, you know, this sort of size. Quite incredible. And we've got quite a few of these plants in here. So we'll definitely be focusing on really strong plants with loads of space. You can see there's a lot of space here, so that we get maximise the side shoot production. Sprouts, more side shoots. These are just coming here, look, you can see, even after all this time. It's incredible. Red cabbages, more red cabbages. Sprouts. I thought, yep, that looks like a rhubarb one. That's good. And then these are colettes. Look at those in a second. More sprouts. Again, some of those are blowing. Just been so windy, really. I think that's the reason we've got quite a few blown sprouts. But as I said, I am definitely not complaining. So these are the colettes, and these are forming well. Actually, we're eating colettes soon, which is another real plus to this kind of varied weather. But oh dear, look at that. Cabbage aphid. Hate the bloody things. Really, really bad to have those. Get rid of those over there. So I need to get on give those a bit of a spray. There's some more there, look. So it doesn't take long for them to go from the odd leaf to basically covering the whole plant. And if they get in the hearts, the growing tips here, they're a real pain. So, more red cabbages, more colettes. Fabulous, look at the size of these colettes. And then there's just loads of colettes all the way down here. And again, more side shoots coming on the calabrese. These are marathon as well, if anybody's interested. Really good. More side shoots. I keep showing you these side shoots because it's really hard to believe that I'm still getting such good side shoots. They're obviously not ready for picking yet. They'll grow quite a bit bigger than that. And a few side shoots that I missed on here. And there's some more down there. And sprouts, runner beans. Again, they were really late, but growing really nicely again now. What have we got down here? This was meant to be full of wonderful crop of carrots, but the germination was horrendous, so I've hardly got any. Young kales maturing nicely for winter. A few of the onions. Most of the onions are at home now. This strawberry bed, so this was garlic, and then we planted the carrots, strawberries on the outside, spring onions interplanted all the way along. Needs a bit of a weed, but it's not too bad. Yeah, so the germination in this carrot bed is not too bad. This is next year's brassica bed. All of these strawberries will get transplanted into containers, and those containers will go into the polytunnel for an early crop. We will need a few of these just to fill in gaps where we've lost strawberry plants as well. But then this bed and all down here will be cleared. All of this will be field beans down to the leeks. Main beets for storage. I'm pretty pleased with the way they're going. Pretty big already. I've got plenty of time yet. Carrots down the edge here. There's a nice purple cauliflower there, ready to be harvested if I can get to it. So now it's meant to be the video of Debbie's plot, but unfortunately I ended up having the camera off when I wanted it on and on when I wanted it off, and so I ended up with lots of nice pictures of the sky. But basically it's going pretty well on Debbie's plot. The herb beds are amazing, and she's got some nice borlotti beans, some lovely apples, an amazing crop of pears, and what else? Oh, some fantastic Romanesco cauliflower, and some claret, purple sprouting broccoli, and so it's all going pretty well. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon.